Reaching the peak is something that JT and I have been talking about a lot lately when it comes to what we feel is our lack of success with our little publishing company and our books. We are making progress, which is why we keep talking about reaching the peak. Because in 1990, when we were living in Japan, JT was in the Air Force, the United States Air Force, and we were stationed at Yokota Air Base in Japan for 3 years. So that was just outside of Tokyo in a suburb called Fuji. And we each took a turn climbing Mount Fuji. There is a climbing season and everything. I'm not going to go too much into that detail, but the point is that he climbed Mount Fuji in 1990, and I climbed Mount Fuji in 1991. And he shared his experience before I did it so that I could prepare better. He wasn't quite ready, even though he was in great shape as an active duty member of the military. Climbing Mount Fuji was quite the challenge because we started from what's called the 5th station, which is at 7,546 feet. The peak of Mount Fuji is at 12,389 feet, which is an elevation gain of 4,843 feet. So that is quite a distance. If you're not aware, Mount Fuji is a volcano in Japan, and I think it's a very recognizable volcano. Most people have seen it whether they realize it or not. But the climb starts at night, so we started our climb at about 9 p.m., and obviously very dark, and along the way there were other stations that we would stop at to have a drink, take a quick break before we moved on to the next level of the mountain. And I do recall that there were places where I was on my hands and knees scrambling over rocks in the dark. We did, of course, take flashlights and canteens and things like that, but it was definitely a different and very new experience for both of us. JT had a little bit more of a struggle than I did because he, at some points, got a little bit of elevation sickness, I think, and needed some oxygen because the atmosphere does thin as you get higher on the mountain. Whereas in my case, once the sun came up and I was coming down the mountain again, I got a really bad sunburn and ended up in the emergency room having it checked out. So we each had our challenges when we were climbing Mount Fuji. It was definitely not easy. We did not start at the base. We started at the 7,546 foot elevation mark, which is where a lot of people do start. And as I mentioned, we started climbing at about 9 p.m. So for many hours, we were climbing in the dark and you could not really see what was happening. By the time the sun came up, see, the whole point of starting at 9 p.m. is that you are supposed to reach the top of the mountain by sunrise. And neither JT nor I accomplished that, which was fine. I was well above the tree line. I'm not sure where JT was because, as I said, we did it separately in different years because we had 3 small children, so we didn't want to leave our kids with a babysitter overnight. So when I reached the point where the sun was rising, I was above the tree line on the side of this volcano. There was no vegetation whatsoever. The pathway was maybe 5-ish feet wide. And on one side, it was the slope of the mountain, and then the other side would be the drop off because Mount Fuji has a very distinctive slope to it. So the sun came up, and Mount Fuji is much taller than a lot of the surrounding mountains. So I don't know what elevation I was at sunrise. I was not at the top of the mountain though. And I looked out and all I could see was a sea of clouds. So there was blue sky, the sun coming up, and a sea of clouds. I couldn't see anything else because all of the other hills in the area were below the cloud level. So that was quite the experience in itself. It was I would almost say it was a religious experience because you do feel very much a part of something bigger than you are, but it makes you feel very small at the same time. So continued climbing for probably several hours more. And this is where the reaching the peak analogy comes in, because there is a point where you're getting to the top of the mountain and you come upon a set of stone stairs, and I believe there might have been something like a torii gate up there. I don't remember specifically. I'll see if I can find some photographs and pop them in, because since we both climbed alone, I mean, we went with a group from the base, but for all intents and purposes, we climbed alone. And so we had like disposable cameras, and we didn't have anybody to like take photographs of us or anything. So we took just a few photos along the way. This is well before cell phone photos, or else I would have had tons of footage of Mount Fuji. But reaching that point where completely exhausted, at this point, it's probably been 6-7 hours of climbing, and then coming across the stairs, because climbing a slope is one thing. Climbing stairs is a completely different experience. And we could see the top of the mountain, but it seemed that no matter how far you went, the top was always just out of reach. So the analogy that we're making is that we can see that there is a possibility of success ahead of us. And I will admit that both JT and I skipped going to the tippy top of Mount Fuji. We went up to the caldera, but there was a smaller little hill on the opposite side. I think it had a weather station on it. And I don't think most people actually made it to that point, because we had to get back down the mountain to our bus in order to get back to base. So basically we got to the top, to the rim of the caldera, and then went back down. And so we never quite achieved the peak itself. But this is my climbing stick, and I know you can't see it very well. I will actually pop a picture in of the stick laying full out. But I did get my stamp on here. It says Sunrise Mount Fuji. So each station along the way, you would get a stamp burned onto the walking stick. So this is the souvenir of having climbed Mount Fuji. And it tells you the various different elevations. Like the 7th step was 2,740 meters. Obviously, I don't read Japanese, but some of it is in English. There's a stamp that says 1991 Fuji and things like that. So this, with the bells, I mean, each time I took a step, I could hear the bells. And most people who were climbing had these sticks. So throughout the night, even though I couldn't see the people who were around me, I could hear the bells ringing. And it was a very strange experience. But what JT and I are doing by using the analogy of trying to reach the peak of Mount Fuji is that we can do hard things. It can be discouraging and disappointing because we didn't make sunrise at the top of the mountain. We didn't find the absolute tippy top peak of Mount Fuji due to time constraints. But we still accomplished a lot by getting up to, mainly it was the caldera portion. There's like a little, almost like a little village up there with some souvenir shops and things and places where you can rest and get some food. So we accomplished quite a bit by climbing Mount Fuji, even though we didn't accomplish the sunrise and we didn't accomplish the absolute tippy top peak of Mount Fuji. I still think what we did was impressive. And thinking back, in 1991, I was 28 years old, so I was much younger. I was never in peak athlete shape, but I had been training to climb Mount Fuji ever since JT did it the year before. And, excuse me, on our base, we had 11-story tall apartment buildings. So every day I would go out for a walk and I would climb up and down those 11 flights of stairs. And doing that repeatedly over the course of a year did help condition me so that I had an easier time of climbing Mount Fuji than JT did. I'm sorry. Not to say that he did not do well on his own, obviously. He just had a few more challenges than I did based on his the fact that he did not get advice from people before climbing, whereas I did. So I benefited from his experience. But what we're doing now is very much like trying to climb Mount Fuji, only we're doing it together. And it does feel like we are in the dark. We are close enough together to be able to see each other, but we can't see what's going on around us. And I don't know, maybe it's like we're in this little bubble with our company and we can't quite see the way out. We are getting advice from people, but it's not quite working out for us. And we can see the possibility of success out there, but it always seems like it's just out of reach. So I just thought I'd share that little story about JT and I climbing Mount Fuji. It was quite the adventure, and if I were 20 years younger, I might try it again. I don't know at this point if I could actually get into good enough shape to be able to do it again. I know quite a few older people have done it, and climbing Mount Fuji is a big deal. The other challenge now would be that it has become such a popular activity that it's very hard to climb Mount Fuji because so many people do it. And the trails are always very busy, and I don't know if they do a reservation system, but they may have to limit the number of people who can do a climb at one time. So I'm very happy I did it. I feel like it was a great accomplishment. It's one of the high points of the adventures that I've had throughout the course of my life. And JT and I think, are both very fond of remembering the fact that we did it. And like I said, we are using this as kind of a basis for, or an analogy for us trying to achieve maybe a higher level of success than we're at the moment, but we're just not quite reaching it. We can see it. The path is in front of us, but maybe there are some twists and turns that we haven't quite figured out. So I don't know if it's a great analogy, but it is a fun one. And I think both JT and I are feeling a little bit down today. We found out that not only are we out of the America's Favorite Couple competition, but we were also vying for Best of Carson City in one of the categories, and does not appear that we placed in the top 3 in that one either. So sometimes these things add up and they become very discouraging, but that doesn't mean we're quitting. We can still see the possibility of success out there. And as I've mentioned in previous videos, we can say that we have achieved a lot of success already because we have written and published numerous books. We managed to retire and make this our full-time career. So in those ways, we are very successful. And I guess maybe we're a little spoiled because we're hoping for more success. We would like more people to read our books. We would like to earn a little bit of extra income, especially now that we're transitioning to Medicare. That is a whole different ballgame than I was expecting. So a little extra income would be welcome. We're not doing bad, but we want to continue to maintain our current comfort level, which I think everybody wants to achieve at some point in their life. We're also struggling with the fact that we are older and we have restarted a career as writers. And I think it's a little bit more discouraging when you've already been through another career and you have achieved certain levels of success in that. Going back to square one with something different can be very challenging. So there are a lot of mental things happening right now that are making us feel a little bit more discouraged than we probably should. But, we can always pull out our climbing sticks here, try not to knock everything over, and think about when we climbed Mount Fuji and all of the challenges of getting up to the top of the mountain to see the sunrise, which, like I said, I don't think either of us made it. This stick was very valuable on the way down the mountain because we went down a path called the Subashiri, and very steep. And basically we were sitting down, sliding down on our backsides, using the climbing stick as a rudder to kind of steer us down. So going down the mountain was much quicker than going up it, but it was a little bit precarious because the incline of the mountain is very steep. Like I said, if you are familiar with Mount Fuji, it has a very distinctive shape to it. It is a cone volcano, and it's quite impressive. We did not have a great view of it from our base housing, But on clear days or clear-ish days, we could sometimes see it out our bathroom window off in the distance. And one of my last memories of Japan was we were leaving Narita Airport in Tokyo, and it was sunset, and we could see Mount Fuji in the sunset. So it was almost like Mount Fuji was seeing us off as we headed back to the United States. So we do feel a very strong kinship with Mount Fuji. We do think about having climbed Mount Fuji quite often and having visited it on a couple of occasions. Because we also took our kids up to the fifth step. The buses would go up there and then you could wander around and explore the shops, and it was very beautiful. And we went to an area at the base of Mount Fuji called Lake Kawaguchiko, which was absolutely gorgeous. And you may have seen photographs of it because it is a popular place for photography during cherry blossom season, with the cherry blossoms surrounding Mount Fuji, like framing it. So you may not realize what you're seeing, but we visited some of those places. And it's funny because when JT and I lived in Nebraska, we bought a couple of photos they were printed out on wood, basically. And never occurred to us that they were actually photos of Mount Fuji. So until we got to Japan, it's like, oh my gosh, we've had these photos for years now, and it's actually Mount Fuji. So we probably didn't just put too much thought into it. They're great images, and I can actually pop in a picture of what they look like. But we really are thinking about reaching the peak, being on that part of the trail where we're close to the top of the mountain. And, the top of the mountain may not be the actual peak of the mountain. It could be the area around the caldera. And, we may not ever achieve the level of success that we would like to financially. I think we're kind of on the fence when it comes to fame. I don't know that we would be comfortable with fame as such, but we would need at least enough of a readership to achieve that level of financial success that we were hoping for. So, it's kind of a mixed bag of things, but we know the peak is there. We can see the peak. We are on a path. We don't know if it's the right path, but we keep trying. We're going to keep taking those little offshoot paths until we find the one that actually gets us to the part of the mountain where we feel we have been successful. Because like I said, neither JT nor I reached the actual pinnacle of that mountain, but we were very satisfied with having climbed Mount Fuji at all. And so I don't know if any of that makes any sense, but I just thought I'd share the story today. And like I said, I will have hopefully popped in a few pictures here and there, what we have of us climbing Mount Fuji, because it was definitely quite the experience. And I will also do a better photograph of the full length of the walking stick, because it is, I believe this one is taller than I am. It may be something like a 6-foot tall walking stick. So that is my story about the analogy that JT and I have been using about reaching the peak of success. And, if you found that story interesting and you would like to help us reach that peak, we would appreciate it. I am going to continue my marketing blitz of Battleborn Bride. I did order my Battleborn Bride specific bookmarks. They have 2 QR codes to them. One goes to the link on my Amazon page for the ebook pre-order, and then on the back side there is a link to the Two More Books bookstore. So I figure they can do double duty. The Amazon link should be active even if the pre-order is done, but I'm hoping, I ordered 25 bookmarks. I think I can give those away. And it would be awesome if I can give away 25 bookmarks and actually get 25 pre-orders from them. I'm not counting on it, but I'm going to give it a shot. Also, I'm still waiting for the ISBN to finalize before we order our proof copy from Draft to Digital, but the book is ready to go. The cover is ready to go, and as soon as that's done, I'll be getting that part of the process going. And the ARC copies of Battleborn Bride will be available starting tomorrow, because Book Sirens just needs to verify payment before that page goes live. So If you're interested, you can go to Book Sirens. I will put a link in the description box down below. You would have to sign up to become a reviewer. You would need to sign up to become a reviewer and then be approved, I think, before you could actually download the book. So if you're interested and you would like to get a free copy of that book before it's available widely, basically the exchange is that you provide an honest review on Goodreads or Amazon or something like that. So definitely check out the link to Book Sirens below if you'd like to become an advanced review copy reader. And I have other plans in the works that I can't think of off the top of my head at the moment because I'm a little fried from everything I've been doing lately, which is one of the reasons I decided that today would be a good day for story time. But we're going to continue to plug along that path, looking at the peak over here. That's just out of our reach, but we're hoping that we'll get there. And we hope we get there before too long because we're tired. We're not just retired. We're tired and retired. Anyway, I thank you for joining me today. If you are new here, I hope you will subscribe and follow along. I do have various playlists in progress right now. I did also create the cover for my Spooktober poetry book, which I actually think it turned out kind of cool. And I'll be doing a reveal on that maybe September 1st, I think. I'm not quite ready to go there just yet, but I am working on Spooktober. I will be getting back to the typewriter as I promised. I've had so many other things going on that that's kind of been pushed by the wayside for the moment. That's also coming. There will be a playlist to go along with that as well. So if you're new here and you are looking for content, there's plenty of it to choose from. I won't say it's always the best content, but sometimes, there might be a nugget of good information or a fun story like climbing Mount Fuji. But I do hope you'll follow along and become part of the community because it's really great interacting with people. And as I mentioned, I think in yesterday's video, I don't respond to direct messages on most social media for various reasons, but I do respond here on YouTube. And if you have seen some of my previous videos, you will see that I do have a back and forth going with one of my YouTube followers. So we've had a lot of fun with that. And we'd be happy to have you join in. But again, I thank you for joining me today, and I hope you'll follow along. And, I hope you're having a great weekend so far. I know the kids in my local area are going back to school tomorrow, so if you're in that place as well, I hope you're ready. But in the meantime, I'm Cassidy Carson, and this is The Life of a Writer. Take care.